One Piece has a lot of things going for it, as it has great characters, great world building, and one of the most interesting lores in all of fiction, but it also has something else on top of all of that. The other thing that it has is a great power system, as it uses both devil fruits and haki, which are both interesting and complex in their own ways, all while bouncing off of each other pretty well. Devil fruits give the user an insane ability while taking away their ability to swim, while haki can counteract those abilities, which wouldn't seem necessary until you understood just how broken some devil fruit abilities can be. Logia fruits in particular necessitate haki, as without haki, any person could just run the One Piece world because not every element has a counter that's readily available. With that being said, despite how much I've talked about haki at the very beginning of this video, that's not what we're here to talk about today, as we're actually here to talk about the first aspect of the One Piece power system ever introduced into the story. Today, we're here to talk about devil fruits, but not just any regular devil fruits, as we're here to talk about the insane power of awakened devil fruits. Awakened devil fruits have taken over the power system when it comes to the endgame of the One Piece story, but that only makes sense because the endgame is where we're supposed to see the most powerful characters. With that being said, it wouldn't feel right to talk about the awakened devil fruits without talking about normal devil fruits first, so let's hop into that right now. The devil fruit is one aspect of the One Piece power system that gives the person that eats the fruit a unique ability at the cost of that person's ability to swim. This is legitimately one of the coolest checks and balances system in a shonen power system out there, because One Piece is literally about pirates, so they're surrounded by water at all times. Now, if a great checks and balances system wasn't enough for this power system, it's also pretty well fleshed out, as there are 3 different types of devil fruits that could potentially give a user different powers. Those 3 types of devil fruits are of course Paramecia, Logia, and Zoan, and they all provide their users with some pretty unique abilities. When it comes to these devil fruit types, 2 of them are pretty specific while 1 of them is pretty broad, so we're of course going to be talking about the specific types first. The Zoan type of devil fruit gives the user the ability to transform into the animal that their fruit is based on, and this power system is so in depth that there are actually subsets within the different types of devil fruits. There are regular Zoans, which transform the user into a regular animal that's around the world today, ancient Zoans, which transform the user into extinct animals like dinosaurs, and mythical Zoans that transform the user into a creature of myth, like Marco's Phoenix Fruit or Kaido's Dragon Fruit. These fruits are really cool because they give the user enhanced durability, and the mythical Zoan fruits actually feature some of the most absurd abilities in the entire series. Logia devil fruits give their user the ability to transform their body into an element of nature at will, as well as create and control vast amounts of that element. These are considered to be the rarest and most powerful types of devil fruits, aside from mythical Zoans, and it's really easy to see why. These guys can literally make themselves unhittable unless the opponent that they're facing can use haki, but unfortunately for them, haki has become a lot more common during the post-time skip material. And finally, we've got Paramecia devil fruits, which are the most ranged, as these fruits allow their user to achieve one of a large variety of abilities that enables them to become superhuman or perform a superhuman feat. They can do things from giving somebody the ability to create and manipulate string, all the way to becoming a jacket that another person can wear to become more powerful. These fruits give the user the most insane abilities of any other fruit besides mythical Zoans, and there's a subset of them as well. There's a subset called Special Paramecia, and we've only seen one of them in the series so far, in the form of Katakuri's Mochi Mochi no Mi. It's a special Paramecia because it gives him the ability to create and control mochi, and it also gives him the ability to turn into it. The only difference between this and a Logia fruit is that it transforms the user into something man-made as opposed to a natural element, so that's why it was given its own category with Special Paramecia. And with that, you would think that the power system would be in-depth enough with 3 different categories and subsets within those categories, but Oda decided that that wasn't enough, so a devil fruit user also has the ability to awaken it. This is something that we've only seen a handful of times throughout the story so far, and it's what today's video is all about. A devil fruit awakens when a devil fruit user's mind and body catch up to their powers according to Kaido, and I believe him completely as he's a fountain of knowledge when it comes to the power system of the One Piece world. This awakening also gives the user increased abilities that have significantly greater power, more refined control, and new abilities that would otherwise not be possible. These abilities are so cool that I thought it would be a great idea to go over all of the awakened devil fruits that we've seen in the story so far, and talk about the crazy abilities that they give their users. Unfortunately for us, at this point in time, we haven't seen any awakened Logia fruits just yet, so we'll only be talking about zoans and paramecias in this video, but there's more than enough cool abilities for that not to be a downer. And with that, I think we should get into it by talking about the awakened paramecias first, because we've seen 4 of them in the canon story so far. Now the first character that we need to talk about in this video is Doflamingo and his fruit, the Ito Ito no Mi. This paramecia fruit gives the user the ability to create and manipulate strings, and the stuff that Doflamingo was able to do with it was pretty insane. He had the ability to cut people using razor sharp strings, uses strings to attach to clouds and swing through the sky like Spider-Man, set a mass of strings on fire and used it as a whip in an attack called Overheat, and even control people's bodies by attaching his parasite string. He was even able to use his strings to stitch his internal organs back together after he was hit with Law's Gamma Knife, and this was before we knew that it was awakened. The Ito Ito no Mi's awakening allows the user to turn their surrounding area into more strings that they can control, just giving them more utility for stronger offense and defense. In Doflamingo's case, he was turning surrounding buildings and even the ground into more strings that he could control, and that extra utility was really hard for Luffy to deal with. Their sheer mass combined with the fact they're so sharp was a huge problem, especially towards the end of the fight when Luffy was near his limit. The fact that Doflamingo could also add haki to these strings really made it look like they were hurting our main character, so his toughness was one of the main reasons for his victory in the end. A lot of people also tend to believe that this is the first awakened devil fruit that we see because of the way that Doflamingo explains his awakening, but that isn't actually the case, and we'll talk about the real first awakened devil fruits that we see later in this video. Next up, we've got another devil fruit whose awakening is pretty similar to Doflamingo's, a devil fruit that we've talked about in this video already, Katakuri's Mochi Mochi no Mi. Now despite the fact that Mochi doesn't seem like it would be the most dangerous thing to be able to control, when the person that can control it is as seasoned of a fighter as Katakuri, it becomes pretty damn scary. Through the creation and manipulation of Mochi, Katakuri is able to create bigger and stronger versions of all of Luffy's attacks, really just feeding into the idea that Luffy is fighting a stronger version of himself in this fight. Copying Luffy isn't the only thing that he does with this fruit, however, as he also forces his fist to fly off his body by inflating his forearm, twists his arm to make it more powerful, a lot like Luffy's Gum Gum rifle attack, and even sprouts multiple versions of his own limbs to give himself more chances to hit his opponent. This is once again before we learn that his fruit is awakened, and once that's revealed, shit gets absolutely crazy. This is because it allows him to turn his surroundings into mochi, just like Doflamingo can turn his surroundings into string, but it's pretty clear that Katakuri is just better at it than Doflamingo. Mochi is also a sticky substance, unlike strings, so it creates a completely different dynamic on the battlefield. Luffy has to avoid the mochi at all costs so he doesn't get stuck, and Katakuri uses this new mochi that he can control to create even more attacks. Attacks like his Muso Donuts attack that allows him to summon tendrils of mochi from the ground, and then do things like summon his fists through them. Oda is truly great at taking powers that seem lame on paper and then making them into some of the coolest powers in the entire series. The creativity would have been cool enough, but the fact that the Mochi Mochi no Mi is attached to a character as cool as Katakuri is just the icing on the cake. Now our next 2 awakened devil fruits come from the 2 captains from the Supernovas that joined Luffy's side to take down Big Mom and Kaido in Wano, and the first half of that duo that we'll be talking about is Law and his devil fruit, the Opi Opi no Mi. Now the Opi Opi no Mi is already one of the most broken devil fruits in the entire series before its awakening, and that's because it turns the user into a free modification human. This is because it allows the user to remodel the world around them as if they're operating on it by summoning giant domains around them that give them total control of that space. The abilities that the Opi Opi no Mi gives Law would take forever to list out if I tried to tell you guys all of them, so I'm just gonna list out some of my favorites. Within his room, Law can essentially teleport by switching himself with any single object within it, he can shock anybody inside of his room, and he can also make people's brains switch bodies, creating a real Freaky Friday situation. The wide range of abilities that the Opi Opi no Mi gives Law easily makes it one of the most powerful devil fruits in the entire series, and that's before you learn that it can also make someone else immortal through a surgery that kills the user with its completion. Law being a surgeon himself before acquiring the fruit also makes it even more broken, as most of the time he knows exactly how to get his desired result out of it. With that being said, Law also awakens this fruit, making it even more busted than before. This awakening gives Law 2 new types of rooms, and those rooms are called the K room and the R room. The K K room allows Law to coat objects with his room abilities, and he mostly does this with his sword, like how he used it against Big Mom to increase the size of his sword to shock her, and then pin her to the ground. This is an ability that he's only used on his sword so far, and it's really busted because it allows Law to make his sword as big as it needs to be for certain situations. That was an insane sentence that I just wrote, but moving on to the R room, this is a room that Law can attach to somebody else and affect remotely. This is insanely broken because it not only allows Law to do damage from a distance, it'll also expand in size if it has to keep affecting the selected target. We saw most of these abilities against Big Mom because even though Law did fight Blackbeard, we unfortunately didn't get to see all that much of it because Blackbeard is an off-screen merchant. The Opi Opi no Mi is already one of the most broken and unique devil fruits in the entire series, but once Law awakens it, it becomes just that much more broken. And with that, we can move on to the final awakened Paramecia fruit for this video by talking about my guy Captain Kid and his devil fruit, the Jiki Jiki no Mi. This Paramecia fruit gives the user the ability to create magnetic forces and use them to control metal, and we see Kid use it in really interesting ways whenever he appears in the story. He mostly uses it to steal people's weapons and use those weapons to create giant metal arms for himself, and I'd say that that's a pretty badass way to use magnet powers. This power really comes in handy after the time skip once Ben Beckman cuts his arm off, as Kid can use the metal that he steals to give himself a new arm. You see, our guy Kid isn't the smartest guy in the world, but the way that he uses his fruit is pretty effective, and the guy gets into a lot of fights, so he gets a lot of chances to try out different things with it. Kid's awakening, however, is a little bit more complicated than his normal fruit, as his awakening allows him to manifest magnetic properties onto different targets. Essentially, he can stick people to different parts of their environment by assigning them opposite polarities, and he uses this in the Big Mom fight to stick her to a wall behind her. He can also use this ability to use an attack called Punk Clash by greatly increasing the level of attraction to somebody that he's assigned, and force a ton of metal around them to fly at them at high speeds. This is honestly a terrifying ability, and the fact that Kid hasn't even gotten used to his awakening yet means that he'll be a huge problem if he's still alive after his last encounter with Shanks. With Kid's really cool abilities explained and discussed, we've talked about all of the awakened Paramecia fruits that we've seen in the story so far, and I only hope that we see more because of the diverse powers that Paramecias can give their users. Now, we've only got Zoan fruit awakenings to talk about now, but things get a little weirder with them because we've seen complete Zoan awakenings and incomplete Zoan awakenings. Talking about the incomplete awakenings first, we have all of the jailer beasts of Impel down, those characters being Minnow Taurus, Minnow Koala, Minnow Rhinoceros, and Minnow Zebra. These were the giant monsters that were chasing our characters as they tried to escape Impel down, and they just kept going no matter the attack that they were hit with. This is because they were awakened Zoan users the whole time, as an awakened Zoan fruit gives the user the ability to recover rapidly, even after suffering high amounts of damage. These guys appearing in the Impel Down arc also means that they're actually the first awakened devil fruit users that we see in the entire story, but that isn't completely a good thing with these guys. This is because their awakenings are incomplete, as I've already mentioned, which means that they fell victim to their devil fruits after awakening them, turning them into near mindless beasts. This is why they don't have the clouds around them like the other awakened Zoan users that we see later in the story, and why they don't even talk when they do appear. Their devil fruit awakenings have completely broken their minds, but the world government doesn't care about that, as they see them as perfect weapons that they can use to patrol their most secure prison. And with that, we can move on to the complete Zoan awakenings that we've seen in this story, starting with one of the two normal Zoans that have been completely awakened, Rob Lucci's Neko Neko no Mi model leopard. This of course gives our guy Lucci the ability to transform into a leopard, something that we see him use to great effect during the Water 7 and Enies lobby arcs. With that being said, this powerful devil fruit and his government training weren't enough for him to beat Luffy and send Robin to Impel Down, so he spent the time skip training just like the Straw Hats did. Through this training, he was able to jump up from CP9 to CP0, and did something insane by awakening his devil fruit. This is also a complete awakening showcased by the black clouds surrounding his body while he's in this form, and we're going to talk about these clouds during this section, because I'm pretty sure that we still don't know what they mean to this day. I mean, we know that it represents the fact that a Zoan user has awakened their devil fruits, but we've seen both black and white clouds. Our guy Lucci has black clouds alongside his awakening, and I think it's easy to say that the black clouds mean that a character is evil, and white clouds mean that they're good, but I think it's gonna be a little bit more complicated than that. That's gonna be an interesting reveal when we eventually get it, but Rob Lucci's awakening makes his human beast form undergo a physical transformation where his size increases, and his body becomes more slender and muscular to increase power. It honestly looks really cool, and a more powerful Rob Lucci that it's in complete control of his mind is definitely a scary sight. And to move on to the final normal Zoan awakening that we've seen so far, we've got Lucci's partner Kaku and his devil fruit, the Ushi Ushi no Mi modeled giraffe. That's right, this fruit gives Kaku the ability to turn into a giraffe, and while you might think that that's lame, don't let Kaku hear you say that, because he loves giraffes. He loves them so much in fact that he awakened his devil fruit during the time skip in the same way that Lucci did. This is definitely going to be the shortest segment of the video because his awakening literally does the same thing that Lucci's does, except he's a giraffe while Lucci is a leopard. Once again, he was supposed to lose control of his mind but just didn't, and the only explanation that I have is that both him and Lucci have too strong of wills to be taken over by their fruits. And with that, we can move on to the really fun stuff and talk about the awakened mythical Zoans that we've seen in this story so far, starting with the members of the Gorosei. Now this might be a controversial part of the video because a lot of people don't believe that the Gorosei have devil fruits, rather they were given their powers by Emu, but the One Piece wiki has them listed as devil fruit users, so we'll be talking about them in this video. The Gorosei's mythical Zoan forms also look really cool and have dope abilities, so I really just wanted to talk about them anyway. Our boy Jupiter has an unnamed devil fruit that allows him to turn into a sandworm, and the fact that it's awakened only makes sense since he's immortal. This thing is absolutely huge, as his pure size allows him to swallow people whole, and he gets the enhanced durability of your typical awakened Zoan. Some of his new abilities include a vacuum breath that's so powerful that giants can't even escape it, shooting anything that he's sucked up back out of his body at high speeds, the ability to dig through the ground and catch people off guard, and finally he gains a bite so powerful that he was even able to bite through the metal body of the Iron Giant. The Gorosei really made a statement when they pulled up to Egghead, and this battle definitely won't be the last time we see them, as they're definitely going to be a huge threat throughout the entire endgame. Next up for the Gorosei, we've got our guy Nusjuro and his unnamed mythical Zoan that allows him to transform into a mythical creature called a Bakotsu. Essentially, this fruit allows him to transform into this really cool looking skeletal horse, and despite the pieces of shit that they are, all of the Gorosei members look really cool when they're transformed. He gets the typical awakened Zoan abilities of enhanced durability, and his transformed forms are undeniably extremely fast. Alongside his speed, Nusjuro can also create ice while in his transformed state, showcased when he imbued his sword with it and froze anybody that he struck down. Unfortunately for us, we haven't seen too much of the Gorosei just yet, so we probably haven't seen everything that their devil fruits are capable of, but that's what makes what we've already seen just that little bit more terrifying. Now for our third out of fifth Gorosei member, we've got our guy Marcus Mars, and his unnamed mythical Zoan that allows him to transform into an Itsumade. An Itsumade is a giant bird creature with the body of a serpent, and unless I'm forgetting what Warcurry's fruit turns him into, this is the coolest beast form out of any of the Gorosei members. This thing looks absolutely insane. It gives Mars the enhanced durability of everybody else, and of course gives him the ability to fly. Now that's to be expected from a literal bird, but this creature seems to be one with energy beams, as not only is he able to fly through the Frontier Dome without being affected by the laser beams, he can also shoot a powerful energy beam directly from his mouth. This is once again something that's extremely powerful, as it can easily destroy metal structures and ignite flames that are capable of burning giants. In all honesty, it seems like the Giants went to Egghead so Oda could show off how powerful the Gorosei are, as it's pretty clear based on what we've gotten in Elbaf so far that it isn't easy to hurt giants. And for our second to last Gorosei mythical Zoan, we've got the final member of the original 5 that's still alive, with Warcurry and his unnamed mythical Zoan that allows him to transform into a Fengshi. Now this fruit once again gives our guy the extreme durability of an awakened Zoan, but his fruit takes it to the extreme, as Luffy literally hurt his hand happened when he hit him with his red rock attack, the same attack that caused Kaido to bleed. Now that wouldn't be too insane, because Luffy might have still been tired after his fight with Kizaru in Gear 5, but that's until Luffy also hurt his hand after hitting Warcurry with a Gear 5 attack. I'm pretty sure that that's the only time that something like that has happened to Luffy in Gear 5, and it's clear that Warcurry has higher than top tier durability, as a punch from the Iron Giant was the only thing so far that's been able to actually hurt him and cause him to bleed. His Devil Fruit might just be the best out of all the Gorosei members as well, because that insane durability isn't the only thing that it has going for it. This form also gives him the ability to unleash incredibly strong Conqueror's Haki infused roars that didn't necessarily knock out characters like Dory and Broggy, but did make it harder for them to fight. His giant tusks are also extremely dangerous, as he can turn them into massive blades, and his giant body with his immense strength also gives him the ability to perform powerful tackles that are capable of sending even the Iron Giant flying. Just like the rest of the Gorosei, Warcurry definitely left an impact during the short time that his power was on display, and his durability is something that makes him a massive threat for when he appears again. And for our final Gorosei member, we have the guy that recently got his life stripped away by Emu, this man Saturn, and his unnamed mythical zoan that gives him the ability to transform into a Gyuki. A Gyuki is a giant monstrous bull spider, and if it wasn't for our guy Marcus Mars, Saturn would have the coolest design out of all the Gorosei members. I actually hate to say that because of the piece of shit that he is, but he got what he deserved when Emu turned his ass into a pile of bones. Once again, enhanced durability is on the table, but he also gains some extremely sharp, pointed legs that are his main forces of offense. Another huge source of offense for the guy are the venomous orbs that he can shoot out of his mouth, which can cause massive explosions while being highly corrosive. Saturn also has the ability to project some invisible, aura-like force that's powerful enough to knock down characters like Sanji, but it's unclear if that's one of his Devil Fruit abilities or a power that every Gorosei member has. With the higher ranking Celestial Dragons being introduced during this endgame portion of the story, we're seeing new powers being introduced all the time, and you can never really tell what's a Devil Fruit ability and what isn't. And with that, we've discussed all of the Gorosei members and their Devil Fruits, and as I've already said, there's a chance that they don't even have Devil Fruits at all. I'd honestly be fine with either option, as their standing as the supreme rulers of the One Piece world would easily explain how they got their hands on such powerful Devil Fruits. It also makes the fact that a Devil Fruit as powerful as Luffy's getting into Luffy's hands a major problem that could truly cause their downfall. Now, we're in the middle of the Rocks flashback at the time me writing this script, so there's definitely a chance that there are more awakened Devil Fruits than I talk about by the time this video comes out, but we've only seen 2 new awakened Devil Fruits during Elbaf at the time of chapter 1160. One of those awakened Devil Fruits was actually eaten by Shamrock's sword Cerberus, which ate an unnamed mythical zoan that gave it the ability to transform into a Cerberus. Now, I have no idea how a sword has an awakened Devil Fruit, since Devil Fruit awakenings happen when the user's body catches up to their powers, but this is a member of the Gods and Knights, so they have access to stuff that we could only dream of. Despite the fact that I don't understand it, this thing does look really cool, as it can manifest enormous blades from its 3 mouths and use those to attack the target. It can also weirdly detach its 3 heads from its own neck, where they can just hover around and have the individual heads act independently of each other and Shamrock. I'm assuming that the sword also has the enhanced durability of awakened zoans, and a crazy amount of power because of its awakening, as it was able to make even Loki be on the verge of death. Mind you, this guy was getting beaten up for a long time by both Shamrock and Gunko, but it was Cerberus's attack that truly pushed him to the edge. Once again, we've only seen this sword one time, but I'm 100% sure that we're gonna get to see it more, especially with Shamrock's connection with Shanks. And finally, for the final new awakened fruit that we've seen so far, we've got Killingham and his mythical zoan, the Ryu no Mi model Kirin. This is a mythical zoan that gives our guy the ability to transform into a type of dragon that has a long neck and only one horn called a Kirin. Now, we've seen a couple dragon fruits in this story already, mainly Kaido's fruit that turned him into a blue dragon, and Momonosuke's recreated version of the same fruit that turns him into a pink dragon. While their dragons are a lot more brute force based, Killingham's is a little bit different because it has more hacks based abilities. He can make people fall asleep from a long distance away and then make them sleepwalk, showcased when he did it to the giant children. He can also manifest the dreams of sleeping individuals, which has led to some of the coolest and funniest moments in the arc so far. It is kinda messed up that they were some of the funniest moments in the arc so far, seeing as Elbaf is currently in the process of being destroyed, but the giants being scared of their Fives was pretty funny. His half-human, half-Kieran form also looks incredibly cool, proving to be the coolest design out of the God's Knights so far. Now that isn't the craziest title since we haven't seen all that many of them just yet, but I do have to say that I'm a pretty big fan of the guy's design. And now for our final awakened devil fruit that we've seen in the story so far, we've got a unique one because it's actually been eaten by two separate characters. This fruit is of course the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika that was eaten by both Luffy and Joy Boy. This is the fruit that gives Luffy the ability to use the coolest power in the entire series, Gear 5, but it also allowed him to have a rubbery body and use his other gears as well. Gear 5 is the power that Luffy gained after awakening his devil fruit, and this awakening is unique because it acts like a Zoan and a Paramecia awakening at the same time. This means that he gets the enhanced durability of an awakened Zoan and can turn his surroundings into rubber like an awakened Paramecia. This Paramecia awakening is also different from the others that we've seen so far because it seems like his mythical Zoan abilities allow him to turn even organic material into rubber and create objects out of seemingly nowhere by altering surrounding objects into something new. This has led to even more creativity in Luffy's fights than there were before, and every time Luffy uses Gear 5, it's must-see TV. I also say that Joy Boy was a user of this awakened fruit because in chapter 1114, Vegapunk says that there's stories of Joy Boy having a form just like Luffy's from 900 years ago, as he was the first man to ever set out to sea as a pirate. Just like Kaido, I believe pretty much anything that Vegapunk says, as he's a fountain of knowledge about the entire One Piece world, just like Kaido is a fountain of knowledge when it comes to the One Piece power system. The fact that Joy Boy had the same devil fruit as Luffy only becomes more and more important as this final saga goes on, as everybody associated with the Celestial Dragons is terrified of Nika and Joy Boy. Gunko literally said that she was scared of Nika when she was asked by one of her other God's Knights, and I actually can't wait to see Luffy get back into the fight on Elbaf. Nika being the ultimate warrior of freedom makes sense, especially since Luffy has been the embodiment of freedom since the very beginning of the story. The Joy Boy flashback to the Void War is gonna go extremely hard, as we're just now getting the Rocks flashback, and it's been insane even though it isn't over yet. Luffy's Gear 5 awakening and his devil fruit are only gonna grow in importance as the story goes on, as it seems like Loki thinks that he may actually have it when he doesn't, and it had to be one of the two fruits that Rocks wanted before he tried to fight the Celestial Dragons. Our guy Loki does lie a lot because he hates the life that he was born into, but I bet he's gonna have an awakened devil fruit himself when we eventually see him fight. And with that, we've talked about every single awakened devil fruit and their users that have appeared in the One Piece story so far. Seeing as we're currently in the endgame, I'm sure that more are going to be introduced as the final saga goes on, and I'd definitely be down to make another video like this one in the future. Devil fruits are easily one of the coolest power systems in all of anime, and their diversity and ability to get stronger only makes them cooler. There are also other aspects of the One Piece power system that are just as complex as devil fruits, and if you guys enjoyed this video, then I can definitely make a video about the insanity of Haki in the future. With that being said, even though this video was a lot of fun to make, I think it's time to end things here. Please join me next time for whatever I post next. Please leave a like and maybe subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.